Welcome to another episode of Teen Minds Redefined, where we just strive to redefine the relationships we have with our teenagers and understand that today's parenting is not yesterday's parenting, and it's time to have a shift in our perspective, and that will shift our relationship with our teens. It's a different world. And today we have a beautiful guest, Caley, who is just a billboard artist. You have to see this woman's energy on Instagram. Please follow her. Her music is amazing. Her connections are amazing. Her energy is amazing. The talent is crazy. I just love it. She's been featured everywhere, but I'm going to leave it to Caley to tell the story because I think her energy is just going to jump off the screen. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here, and I'm proud to be a part of what you're doing because you're doing great things in here.
Yeah, well, as are you. So tell us your story first. How did you get to where you are today? What's your mission? What happened? Something happened, right?
Well, now I'm very proud to say I'm a Billboard charting artist, like you said, and the proud creator of Music with a Message, which is an in-school assembly program and music event that raises self-confidence and helps prevent bullying for ages preschool all the way up to high school. And we have different programs for each grade. Yesterday was at Pepperdine speaking to high school students, so that we'd go more leadership and entrepreneurial skills because those high school students were there for that. But I do it all through empowering music. So I bring them social emotional learning skills and empowering music to package it all together nicely, because with music, we remember things forever. It stays in our minds for a very long time.
Well, and there's not a moment, there's not a familiar song that comes on where it doesn't just take you right back.
Yeah.
And it could take you right back to a great time. It could take you right back to a sad time. It can trigger so many emotions. And it's just one of those things. So what better way to connect a message than to music?
Thank you. That's how I got my title.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you get to this point? What made you go, okay, I've got to start changing what I'm doing and making music my message and getting it out there?
Yeah, just 2 years ago. It's been a fast-paced 2 years, and once you're onto something that people need, I think things do start to snowball, and you see how much people need it, and so you put more work into it, and other people end up helping you on your journey, which is beautiful. But just 2 years ago, I was kind of noticing that I had made a lot of empowering music in the 4 years before. When I started becoming a songwriter 6 years ago, I started making empowering music and then noticing that young people were gravitating toward it, but I didn't know how to reach them because you can't really find them on social media because they shouldn't necessarily be on social media, and you can't market to them on social media, which is a good thing. And so then I started thinking about how I was bullied in middle school, and it was a really tough time for me. And the decade that followed middle school, I didn't have any self-confidence. I thought it was something you were either born with or you weren't, and the lucky ones were, and I wasn't one of those people. But then I started to realize that it was something you could build and grow and teach. And I started speaking in schools and singing in schools and connecting my music with my message. And then I, really worked on the program even more and paired with some teen and child psychologists to get the skills that I was imparting to these students even more solid, because I wanted to give them the absolute best tools to build their self-confidence and get over that experience of being bullied.
Yeah. And, my kids are older. And so bullying for them was very valid, but it was very different. It was, they didn't get picked on the team, or, they didn't get invited to the sleepover, but then they went home and it was a safe space.
Yeah, that's good.
Whereas I've spent 25 years in high school, and in the last, 5, 6, 7 years, when social media just became, you don't go home and you're not in a safe space anymore. It chases you, it follows you, it's everywhere.
That's so true.
So how has bullying evolved? What does it look like now? What are you seeing?
It's tough. And when you said there are so many different definitions of it, and some educators I've talked to are like, it's kind of being overused as a word. A kid will get just in one little disagreement with another kid and they'll say, I'm being bullied. So we don't want to overuse the term, but it is everywhere and rampant, and it needs to be taken seriously because it leads to so much more serious effects and consequences. Based on the individual, they can end up turning toward alcoholism later, or drugs, or the absolute worst end of getting bullied can be taking their life by suicide. And when I started this mission, I didn't think suicide would be a part of it. I wasn't thinking that far ahead, but of course it's a part of it. And school shootings and the most terrible effects of bullying. So, I mean, kindness is not overrated. And yet we need to learn to get along with each other. And then we need to learn to protect ourselves when people do say unkind things. Because unfortunately, I mean, if you poll a number of adults, most of them will say, I went through that at some point, maybe even in my adult life, in the workplace. So how do we build our self-confidence after any kind of trauma? It doesn't even just have to be bullying. It's become so much bigger than bullying. It's all kinds of trauma and building yourself back up after that experience. Because now I'm really happy to be able to say I am a person who loves myself and likes myself. But there was a time when I hated myself and I had to really work to get here because it can be a tough world,
Yeah. And we're talking about, most of my audience is parents of teens. And when your kid comes home and says they've been bullied, I feel like your response is based on your experience. So maybe you were a bully, maybe you were a victim, maybe you were a bystander. So your response to your kid is going to be very different depending on your experience, right?
Absolutely. And I'm not proud to say that I was both. I remember, I don't know if she considers it being bullied, but I remember being unkind to a girl a couple times because I was a person who was hurt, and hurt people. But telling that to a kid can only go so far. So, I'm trying to impart those messages. And then I noticed a lot of educators with high schoolers almost feel like, oh, well, they're not going to listen. They're past that, and they need it so much. Middle schoolers too. The elementary schools are really receptive to the message. And then with high schoolers, I kind of need to sneak it in a little bit through cooler content and more, this is just the advice that's worked for me. It doesn't have to work for you. And approach it that way, because they don't want to be told and they don't want to be given advice.
Yeah. Oh,
Yesterday was a group of high school boys and I was intimidated going in, me, an adult, just thinking, okay, I have to be careful around them and make sure I'm not preaching,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. Well, that's where the music comes in, right?
Yeah. And the music is cool and it's been on the radio. So that gives it kind of a cooler factor. It's not kids' music, which I was really passionate about. It was my existing adult music that I adapted some lyrics here and there. So I had a lot of female empowerment music. And I wanted to reach young women, but then I wanted to reach everyone. So I rewrote some of the songs. And yeah, they've been on the radio, so it gives it that cool factor. It's like Taylor Swift in their schools.
I love it. So let's get down and dirty and practical. If a kid, so let's aim this at a teen and hope the parents, can hijack their kid, put them in the back seat and make them listen to this podcast, because we know the teens are not going to listen to the podcast their parents are listening to. I've completely accepted that now. But if they are suspected of being bullied, or they have admitted, what, I'm feeling bullied, I'm feeling uncomfortable. What are they saying? What are parents doing? What are they saying? Because listen, I have had so many, and it's a pet peeve of mine, where parents have said, yeah, but I don't want to make things worse. I don't want to complain. I don't want to, whatever. And it's like, oh my goodness, you have.
I understand.
So what are we doing when our kid comes home and says?
It starts before they're bullied, it's during they're bullied, and it's after they're bullied. It never ends, of course, right? This job of being parents. I mean, and when you say that some parents don't want to get involved, I just yesterday talked to my 4-year-old's teacher because she just had a disagreement in school with someone, and I just wanted to make sure they had the opportunity to talk it out. But before I did, I immediately judged myself and thought, okay, I don't want to be that hover parent. Is it too much if I talk to the teacher? And then I had to just get over that because, her feelings and her confidence is my priority, and how I'm perceived, I cannot control. So it's so many things for parents, and that makes it, so much pressure. But at the same time, if we improve our own self-confidence, we can also help our kids be that confident person, because how we react to situations models how they can react to situations. So, when someone cuts us off in traffic, Is it, oh, that person must have it out for me and this whole day is going terribly? Or is it, wow, that person must be in a difficult situation and it actually has nothing to do with me. I'm going to give them some grace and I'm going to give myself some grace. So that's, I think, one of the key things, and modeling confidence in different ways. And this is all prior to being bullied. But, you know, when you look in the mirror, are you picking yourself apart, or are you saying, okay, I'd like to work out a little bit tomorrow so I feel healthier, but I'm feeling like my hair's looking good today, you know, and picking out those positive things, because how we think and how we talk absolutely affects our children, and how we model being a person and being a human in this world is so important, you know. And we can tell them all day, don't take it personally, but that is the thing that we need to tell them, right? You know, and I keep telling my daughter, only hurt people, and giving her all of these empowering statements. And then also, I think something that's really important is, if bullying were to occur and they come home and say, you know, someone's been unkind to me, how did they react? Did they stand up for themselves? Did they run away? And it's fine to have emotions, you know. I understand having hurt words said about you or to you is hurtful. But I would hope in that moment they're encouraged to say, hey, that's not right. And also to realize that that person must be hurting. That's the only reason, you know, trolls come online to say things about us, is because they're hurting. I've been going live on social media playing music, and every once in a while, I've got a great group of people in there. They call themselves the Brave Ones after one of my songs. But every once in a while, a troll will come in and say something unkind. And it used to be that I took it really personally, and I would, you know, crawl into a ball believing what they said. But now that I've learned so much about confidence, I realize it's really about them, and no one who's more happy than you, successful than you, loves themselves more than you would ever find a need to come in there and say something unkind. So my immediate response instead is, are you okay today? You must not be. You know, we're here for you if you want to talk about it. And saying that to a bully in person, it could incite them, but it's the truth, right? So they might not want to hear that truth, but it helps us realize it's not about us. Taking it personally is not what we should be doing.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think of the difference.
There's
Like,
a lot.
catch a bully alone, I
Yeah.
can see that conversation,
Yeah.
because we know, like, a true bully is just scared
Yeah.
and feels very confident with their, you know, posse behind them.
Yeah.
So how do we ask our kids in that situation? And we know, like, I think younger kids might even feel more confident to say, "Oh, you must be having a bad day." But when we get into grade 9 and grade 10, and I feel like this could set the precedent for your entire high school career.
Absolutely. And your work life later on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So what are we telling kids to say? Like, is there a response? Is there a strategy?
Yeah. Absolutely. It's also making sure that they're physically safe first and foremost, right? Like, their job is to protect themselves and their body. So if they need to walk away, they walk away. And then the not taking it personally is so key, but it's hard, you know. I'm not going to say it's not difficult. Absolutely. But that is the most important thing, to protect themselves, to make sure that they know who they are. You know, sometimes a bully might just point at a weakness in ourselves and we might think that it's true, but if we can try to realize that it's not true as much as possible, or it's something that we can work on, and teaching them that, you know, like I said about confidence not being intrinsic, it's something that we can grow and work on. So if they point out something about their physical appearance or their personality, and they're, you know, deep down inside, they are ashamed of that thing, we can change and we can evolve and we can grow. And so they can work on that. But yeah, physical safety first and foremost, of course.
And I feel like I'm picturing a parent who has been bullied,
Yeah.
who just wants to, like, completely ignore that feeling,
Yeah.
or was a bully and doesn't want to admit they were a bully.
Yeah.
You know, I think this is the time where, you know, where we say times have changed and we can't parent the way we were parented.
Yeah.
And, you know, admitting to our kids, you know what? I totally screwed up in grade 9 and I was a bitch to a couple of girls and I made them feel terrible. And
Yeah.
it's because I remember, obviously, it has some trauma. And, maybe it's, I recognize this in you, or I recognize you might be one of these victims.
Yeah.
And, this is where the shift in parenting happens, because
Yeah.
I feel like up to maybe grade 6 or 7, we're still the parents for sure. But I also think we become more of a coach or a mentor in the high school grades, because you have more of an alignment with them. And if you're admitting to things that you went through and you don't know the answers, or you weren't the perfect parent that, they know you're not, but you act like, if those stories start to come out and we start really like authentically living and being honest, then I feel like it gives them a little bit of grace and a little bit of, oh, okay, well, maybe I can admit I did this too, or I am the victim of this.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the big shift that we're really trying to get the message across with this podcast and every episode. It's not putting Band-Aids on the strategies. It's not, giving them one-time deal, because if we start to teach our kids now about bullying, like you said, there's the workplace, there's relationships, there's like something that's going to be a one and done.
Absolutely. And that's like when you ask, what can we say to them? Unfortunately, there's not one thing to say. I wish I could say, just say this line and it'll work with all bullies, or these 5 lines, or even 25. Every situation is so different, So when your kid comes home and tells you that that's happening, you have to assess so many different things. And I've talked to families who, in the end, they needed to pull their child out of that school to get them away from that person. And that was the safest, best choice for them. And the story always ends up, and now they're thriving, or now they're working through it and they're in a better place or something. So sometimes that is going to be the answer. And it's terrible that they have to be pulled away from their friends. But there are so many different, methods and prevention methods and after methods that we talk about, and it can be bringing in a friend to support you. Okay, well, what if the kid doesn't have any friends? What if the kid truly is alone? Okay, then we might need to get to a teacher. And I'm performing the assembly at 22 schools in August. And I talked to the district and they said, can we address the idea of snitches get stitches? And I said, okay, yes, absolutely. Because that is unfortunately a kids thing a thing kids say, and something that in certain situations when it's, no, somebody's safety is in jeopardy here. I need you to tell a grown-up or tell someone in the moment or recruit friends to help you protect yourself or that child or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I forgot about that phrase about stitching. Like, that's just
we're so far away from elementary school.
Oh my, yeah. Well, and I imagine it's the same thing in high school. I just don't know what the phrase would be anymore, but you're right. Like that's a whole other ball game is, can you protect your friends? Can you stand up for your friends? And are you now at risk of being the victim because you stood up for your friends?
Yeah, absolutely. It's terrible. Like whatever situation is different. And so in high school, I'm sure it's, more of a behind the back endeavor in high school or an online thing. But if I have to, really give a 3-step method, it's, preventative care first, protecting yourself and building up your self-esteem, then trying not to let that affect you, which is the most challenging part, and then building up your self-esteem after and realizing that one person, in the grand scheme of things doesn't mean anything. Unfortunately, if we were in CVS and someone was being rude to us, we would be able to walk away. It's a big world, but in elementary and middle and high school, it feels so small.
Yeah, it really does. And then what is your experience with the whole social media bullying?
Yeah, I mean that, so many people are cloaked in anonymity and it's a dangerous, dangerous place. And like I said, I've experienced it myself. And the old me is different from the new me who realizes that that's not about me, but it took a lot of therapy, a lot of self-work. So doing that work is the most important thing for adults and teens and kids. We're constantly, working on ourselves, and self-confidence isn't one finite thing that just lasts. We have different confidence in different areas, but how we feel about ourselves should be something that is the utmost importance. That's why social emotional learning is becoming more important in schools, and that's so wonderful, but it really needs to be at the forefront, because I went to an Ivy League school. I don't remember all the art history dates that I had to study to get in and then to stay in, and yet that was made paramount in my education. But how I thought about myself and felt about myself was not, so it's systems that we're trying to bring new things in. And that's why we have the assembly, and we also have a curriculum to try to get that social emotional learning in there.
So talk about that. Like, not everybody knows that term, social emotional learning.
Yeah, it's true.
Talk about it.
Yeah, social emotional learning has luckily become more prevalent in schools these days in certain areas. But it's about mental well-being for kids and all the things that basically we at this age didn't get to learn in school that we wish we had. Kindness and self-confidence and mental health. Really, it's mental health in schools. And so I'm so happy schools are doing a better job of it, but they're already taxed with so much, educators, they're doing so much already. So sometimes we need supplementary education to come in there.
What would be an example of like a bit of the curriculum that would be brought into the school for that?
It's different for every age, elementary, middle, and high school. But the first one that comes to mind is I have a song called Fireproof. And so we bring that in for elementary schools, and it's a couple different classes that it spans, but I teach them power poses and how to hold their bodies in confident postures, because Harvard has studied that really does work for adults and kids. It made adults seem more confident in job interviews and perform better. So truly last week, my husband had a job interview and I was like, you better do power poses. Like, please.
Be a warrior.
Yeah. Stretch yourself out. And it was in Ted Lasso. Now it's becoming more and more prevalent, which is great. So we teach them the power poses set to choreography. And then there's a unit where they get to make their own. And it's really great. And like I said, the high school and middle school curriculum is more about growth mindset. So growth mindset is more about a little bit of what I've been talking about, where it's not an intrinsic quality, anything. You can work on anything in yourself, and it perceives failure as inevitable and something that gets us to growth. So talking about that more and more, because even with the high schoolers yesterday, I was like, we look up to, Taylor Swift, Michael Jordan, and the truth about those people is they've failed so much more than we have. That's how they got to the successful place that they're in right now. But we don't see that, often we just look at the highlight reel of people's lives and not the behind the scenes, but we're seeing all the behind the scenes of our lives,
Yep. It's so true.
People perceive you that way and me that way. There are always people thinking that we all have a perfect life, and no one has a perfect life.
No, absolutely not. And it's great as you get older that you get more confident and less care about what other people think, for sure. I wish I could just transfer that into younger people now, so they don't have to wait. They can just skip that middleman.
We don't want them to hurt at all, right? But
oh,
when it stinks.
Yeah. And how you respond to it, and I think, even talking about like a response as opposed to a reaction, when you are like part of the preventative, like, oh, okay, he just said this to me, take a breath. He just said this to me, take a breath. She just did this, take a breath first, so that you have that opportunity to go. And that's practiced at home, right? Your kids, teenagers mouth off all the time. But instead of going, go to your room, put your shit away, blah, 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 can you like take a breath, say, oh, there's probably a better way you can say that to me.
Yep.
Hopefully.
Speaking from experience, I take it.
Yeah, of course.
I mean,
that's
just 4, but I'm always fast forwarding in my mind to say, oh my goodness, how is it going to look when she's a teen? But I can't put that negativity on a future experience, please. It can be very hard for work and all that.
When you have all this information already of social emotional, like, I think you're way ahead of the game, which is great. And the fact that you're sharing this is even better, because this is what we need. What we need.
I mean, I follow Dr. Becky. Do you know her at all on Instagram?
Oh, yes. All good inside. Oh, yes, my God.
Dr. Becky, good inside. But my favorite video was one time where she said, my kids do not get Dr. Becky as a mom. That would be impossible and annoying and so many things. So, nobody's perfect. And so my greatest hope for my daughter is that she will be in therapy someday talking about something about me. At least that means she'll be in therapy. You know?
Yeah. 100%. 100%. Yeah. We all
Totally.
need that. We all need
Yeah,
that.
I know. We're all
So
doing
let's talk about this project. Let's hear about this
my album.
promo. You're singing and you're going to make an album, and you're on song 3.
Yes. So I am raising funds. I'm doing a crowdfunding project, which some people might not know about, but Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and all these websites have popularized that in the past couple of years. And my goal is to make an album. It has a new song for Music with a Message on it called Brave Ones. I've been performing that in schools all across the country. And high schoolers have said, hey, is there a recording of it? A special needs student 2 weeks ago messaged me on Instagram and said, is there a recording of that? And every time she comes into my live, she asks for that song. So I try to save it until she gets there. And she's having heart surgery, such an incredible human. So that's why this group of people started calling themselves the Brave Ones. And it's so beautiful. So that's going to be the name of the album. And yeah, we're raising money for it, which I've gotten over $6,000. And I'm just so beyond honored and shocked and all these things, because that was a fear of mine. I crowdfunded over 12 years ago, before I met my husband, and met one negative, comment amongst so many positive, kind, generous ones, but that stayed with me in my heart for a long time. And so, yeah, when I thought about doing this, I felt really uncomfortable. But since then, I've had about 40 very positive, very kind, generous donations and responses. So it's funny because, I study so much psychology and I studied it in school, and they say that it takes, I think it was in the New York Times, that 3 positive experiences outweighs 1 negative experience. And I'm like, I've now had 70. I still hold on to that one interaction, but we're getting on to song number 4, and hopefully going to be made, because it has a lot of empowering songs on it, songs that'll provide healing and catharsis. And I hope that the world, adults and kids alike, it's music that I want to listen to. It's not music for kids.
Yeah. And how many songs are going to be on it? What is the goal?
The goal is 10.
Okay.
I've had them for so many years. And I think when you have a certain good idea, it just keeps knocking on the walls of your mind. And so it's funny because my producer was like, well, make sure you keep writing. And I'm like, I know, but I have to get these out. I'm like, they're just knocking and knocking.
Yeah.
So after that, I'll continue writing more, because I was super prolific before I had my daughter, and I wrote over 100 songs in a year. So I have many on backlog.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it. So where can people follow you? And I know because I creep you all the time, but you can tell everybody else how to follow you and what.
Yeah, if you're listening, it's Caley, Roses in the Flower. Caley, Roses in the Flower. A lot of people think it's K because it's Kaylee, but it is a C. And on social media everywhere, my music's on Spotify and Apple Music, and Music with a Message is everywhere as well. So you can find me and then find Music with a Message and bring it into your kiddo or teen school. And we're going all around the country. We're living in this Airstream that you see behind us. And I learned through journeying across the country on wheels that you can still get on planes even when you own a vehicle purposely to take you places. So someday I'm hoping we'll take it internationally. That's my dream.
So you're traveling now. You have a new baby coming.
Yes, there's a baby.
And where are you going to land? Do you know where you're going to land?
Yeah, we were trying to fall out of love with Los Angeles, but it hasn't happened yet. Something is calling us back. I know, we saw 22 states in 8 months, and it was bananas. Yeah, we had a COVID dream. We made it come true. But we missed having a community too. So we're excited to get back to friends and people we know. This weekend I need to find a babysitter for my daughter, and if I was in the middle of the country where I don't know anyone, that's kind of hard to find.
Yeah,
you know. You have 2 kiddos, right? You said?
Yeah, 2 grown-ass adults, long gone, out of the house and living their life, and now my friends. It's just so cool. It's so cool.
So beautiful.
Like that you say, good humans. They are good humans. Yeah. I'm waiting for the grandchildren now, but that's okay.
And they got bullied. If you're willing to share a little about that they got through it. And
it's, this is the point where I think this is where things have shifted. Even the other day, You know, my son was joking. He's 34. He's joking about being on a men's volleyball team, and he brought back the fact that, oh, I was so scared they were going to pick me last. And he's super confident, and he's like an MMA, jiu-jitsu,
No way!
You know, all of that.
Oh my goodness.
And to hear him say, so this is my point where it's just like, we have to address this trauma and work through it, not push it, because I'm sitting there thinking, wow, I did not work through this with him enough, because he's still talking about it.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. You meet people where they're at. But
Yeah.
the point of the podcast is to say,
yeah,
this is what happens when we just allow things to just, you know, push it aside, or don't worry about it, or it's okay.
Yeah.
No, we have to give our kids the skills, and we need the skills.
Yeah.
And if we don't have them, we have to look for them.
Absolutely. So if we don't process those emotions, they stay in our body. But I wouldn't say that you didn't deal with it enough, you know, like you're always gonna have that memory. Like I talked about 40, 70 positive experiences, and I still remember that one negative one, because of self-preservation, and we're trying to protect ourselves from social outcasts, you know, existence and all of those things. So it made him stronger. He's going out for it again, right?
Totally did. And I love. All right. Well, you know, Caley, this has been amazing. I've been just dying to talk to you, and I'm so glad I caught you before you can settle down and create a new baby again. Yes. But, you know, listeners, not just share this with your friends, but take this to schools, take this to principals, take this to the board. These are the skills we need. You know, you can put aside your geometry for a few minutes,
right?
And give us something that we can use for the rest of our lives, not just for, you know, one exam. At least that's how I feel about geometry.
Yeah, I know. But the teachers
we're going to put
best.
Yeah, we're going to put everything in the show notes, Caley. I really appreciate you taking the time, and good luck. And I will be getting off here and donating to your album, because I think it's fabulous.
Thank you.
Go for it. You're gonna get this. You're gonna get this, and then you're gonna, you know, share the story, because this is somebody is sitting where you are right now who needs to hear you, who needs your message, and so important. So thank you for listening to Teen Minds Redefined. Thank you, Caley. Everything's in the show notes, and again, share.